Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. After a couple days not here, I am back. Here I am, the notorious RMB, here to talk to all of you, the members of the Post-Geek Singularity community, once again about geeky stuff. A few news items I think that are worth sharing. The Dark Knight trilogy, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, was just announced as returning to theaters, I believe at the end of the month, for a one-night-only event where they will be screening all three of the Dark Knight films in 70 millimeter. So that is pretty exciting if you are a fan of Nolan's movies, and it's all in celebration of Batman's 80th birthday. So that's pretty damn cool in my book, which I think, it's great. It's great. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, so that's just the first news item I thought would be fun to discuss right off the top. And the other thing I wanted to discuss is Captain Marvel's performance at the box office. It had an $11 million Monday. Why is that important? Well, an $11 million Monday for a non-holiday movie, a movie not released around the holidays, is that's tremendous box office staying power. And they're anticipating Captain Marvel might have a $70 million second weekend at the box office. And that means, dear friends, that you're looking at a domestic gross, if it indeed does have in excess of 230, maybe $240 million in basically 10 days. This is an extraordinary home run for Captain Marvel. It's an extraordinary home run for Marvel Studios and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which in my mind is great. I haven't said, I was not on, unfortunately, John Campia's spoiler review of Captain Marvel, but I quite enjoyed it. I did not think it was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I really enjoyed everything that we saw in it. I had a great time watching the film. The only thing that I really didn't like about the movie was Nick Fury's eye being lost to Goose. I thought that was a little lame, and I've heard that was something they threw in at the last minute. I mean, it looked like the cat scratched him, but it's not like he was screaming in pain because he lost his eye. I always thought that there would be a more interesting story, and I understand that's kind of a retcon, but whatever, that it hadn't been established in the MCU, I'll go with it. Now, I didn't mind things that they were doing with the Tesseract. I really didn't. Because that kind of thing doesn't bother me. It hadn't been established. It was a little murky about what was going on and who knew what when. So those things, for the most part, I really enjoyed Brie Larson's performance. I loved seeing the Kree. I thought they did something very interesting with the Skrulls, sort of making them refugees and kind of making them the good guys in a way, ultimately. Even though I don't think that's the case for all of the Skrulls. I think this particular group of Skrulls, probably not all the Skrulls, but I found it very, very interesting. And I thought that for the most part, I really enjoyed the film. There's a lot in it to love. I mean, I didn't expect, it's such a strange thing to me that everybody expects these movies to blow them away, that every single movie like this, it's got to change your life. I mean, that certainly wasn't the case. I mean, I walked into Thor thinking, how the hell are they going to make Thor work in the same universe as Tony Stark and Iron Man? How are they going to show us the Rainbow Bridge? Are we going to believe it? And they did. I'm constantly amazed at the care with which these films are made. And it was, I thought there were some things like there's the car chase when Fury is chasing, and Fury and Coulson are chasing Brie Larson on the train, and how there was a lot of great camera work and action choreography when they would pan from the car beneath the train and then pan up to the train. It felt like I was watching, in a way I was thinking, oh my God, this is like Die Hard with a Vengeance, because of course Sam Jackson is in it. I really enjoyed a lot of the filmmaking that was going on. I mean, it wasn't flashy, but I thought they did a particularly good job. And a lot of people didn't. I've read that people are grousing about something. But I enjoyed Captain Marvel quite a bit. I'd call it a mid-range Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It wasn't as epic as I wanted it to be. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was, I thought, a worthy entry into the MCU, and I really can't wait to see more. I don't think that everybody seems to think that she's going to be the Deus ex machina of Avengers Endgame. I don't think that's true. I think she'll be a fine addition to the movie, but I don't think that she's particularly going to overshadow anyone else. I'm not worried about that. It's so strange that everyone seems to be thinking that Captain Marvel has come along to sweep the rest of the MCU aside and that we don't care about those characters. I don't think that's the case at all. I trust in my main man, Kevin Feige. I really do. But the topic of this conversation is March 20th is the date that the Fox acquisition by Disney is going to be completed. They had one hurdle. That was people in Mexico. They had to ratify or they had to sign an agreement. It was the last thing they needed to do to pave the way for this merger. And I've been thinking a lot about, we talked a lot about this on the John Campea show this morning, but I've been thinking a lot about the Fox merger and what does it mean to the industry as a whole. Now, some reports are saying that 4,000 people are potentially going to lose their jobs. And that's to be expected. It's unfortunate, but with mergers of this type, you've got one studio being taken in by another studio. There's a lot of redundancies. There's a lot of the same kinds of jobs that they just don't need to double up on, that's a bad thing. And with Disney, now the lord of all things Fox and Disney, the worry is that we're going to get less diverse movies. And I don't mean diverse in terms of representation. I mean different kinds of movies. We're going to get more of the franchise properties, and that's probably true. But there's a lot of great franchises that Fox has in their stable, such as the Alien franchise, the Predator franchise, the Home Alone franchise, the Die Hard franchise. And I wouldn't mind seeing more of those movies as long as they're good, as long as they're well written and well made, and they all have verisimilitude. I don't mind that. And I think another benefit, at least the way I see it, is Disney is really great with their legacy in terms of preserving it for home entertainment purposes. And one of the reasons that they acquired Fox, I think probably the biggest reason, is they wanted that back catalog. I mean, the Disney catalog only really appeals to a certain kind of people, as much as the MCU movies are there, Disney has never made movies like the Die Hard series or the Alien franchise. And I'm sure that all of these movies are going to wind up on their streaming service, or they're going to have a Fox adjunct to their streaming service that'll probably be for a couple extra bucks. You can get the Fox library as well. I mean, I'm actually really excited. As many of you know, in my early days working as a DVD special features producer, I worked exclusively for a while on Disney product. I worked on the Snow White first DVD release. I worked on The Emperor's New Groove. I worked on Fantasia. And I famously made, well, maybe famously to me, I made a feature-length documentary on the making of Tron, which you can see on that film's Blu-ray. They ported it over. I originally made the documentary for Tron's 20th anniversary in 2002, but they ported it over to the Blu-ray release, which I was very happy to see because it's an 88-minute documentary. And I interviewed so many people. I didn't get to interview David Warner, but I interviewed Jeff Bridges and Bruce Boxleitner, and it's a fine documentary. But I think one of the things I learned during that stint was how careful Disney is about preserving their legacy. And if they bring that thinking to Fox, I'm all for them exploiting the hell out of the Fox library and getting as much crap from Fox up on available for streaming as they possibly can. I think that's a wonderful thing. Do I think it's wonderful overall for our culture that another entertainment behemoth absorbed an entertainment behemoth, or a fraction of an entertainment behemoth? Probably in the long run, no. I don't think it's a great thing. I think, back to the diversity issue, I like seeing as many diverse kinds of movies as possible. And I know that Fox Searchlight, which is the lower budget genre or more of the prestige version of 20th Century Fox, they've retained a lot of those executives like Nancy Utley, who's been with Fox Searchlight for 20 years. They've kept her as part of Fox Searchlight. So Fox Searchlight will probably continue and crank out Oscar caliber fare. They've had a pretty great track record if you look into Fox Searchlight. And I think that, in a way, it's sort of the end of an era. And the fact that the Fox movie studios is gone. I mean, when they had to sell it off because of Cleopatra, that's where Century City came from now, if you've been to Los Angeles. And there was just a little bit of that Fox lot left. There's a huge filmmaking legacy that is now no more. And I feel sad about that. But that, again, is the way of the world. If you live in LA, one day something you love will one day close down or be torn down. Somebody will get rid of it. And that is problematic. But still, I think in the long run, it's probably not a good thing. But I do, like I said, I do think that we're going to get all the Fox materials preserved the way they should. And they're going to wind up, I mean, the fact that we're going to get the entire Disney legacy. I mean, when was the last time you saw Apple Dumpling Gang or Treasure of Matacumbe or Island at the Top of the World or Candle Shoe? When was the last time you saw those movies? Probably never, right? Well, because in the 70s, Disney made a lot of live action movies that were for kids that I would go, and my parents took me to see all of them. And, they are on home video, but I probably wouldn't make an effort. But if they're on a streaming service, I'd click through that. I'd watch Candle Shoe again with a young Jodie Foster being a detective in her relative's home in England or wherever it was. It's been so long. I haven't seen that movie. I saw that movie once when I was a kid. And Treasure of Matacumbe I saw once. Island at the Top of the World was a favorite of mine when I was 10. So I'm looking forward that they've said that the entire legacy of Disney, with probably the exception of Song of the South and some of their blatantly racist caricature cartoons they made during World War II for propaganda purposes, we probably won't see those. But you never know. I think if you can contextualize them, there was talk when I was working at Curdy Pellerin on these Disney movies that we would love to have tackled Song of the South, and we would have had some prominent Black entertainers and sports figures to talk about Song of the South and its legacy to the Black community. But even then, it probably was too much of a hot potato. We could never get them to sign off on it. I used to own Song of the South. I had a Japanese Laserdisc of it, which I sold for actually a great deal of money. So I don't have a copy of Song of the South anymore. But, there are things about that film that I actually liked. And Brer Rabbit and Uncle Remus and all of that. I watched that film when I was a kid. But the Fox merger, yeah, in the long run, I really hope they retain the Fox logo. We can hear the Fox fanfare. We can hear the CinemaScope extension to the Fox fanfare. And on March 20th, I believe it's March 20th at 12:01 Eastern Standard Time is when the deal is in fact finalized. So we shall see what happens. I'm very interested to see what happens and what it all means in the long run. Celadon Sound says, Avengers 1 opens with Fury and company at Project Pegasus facility. I love the attention to detail in the MCU. It's NASA SHIELD operated in Avengers, but NASA USAF operated in Captain Marvel. Guessing SHIELD took over. Yes, I did love that too, Celadon. I thought that was great. And, it's amazing what we get from these movies. And it's so funny to me when I see people, the vitriol that was hurled at Captain Marvel before it came out and the controversy that erupted over Brie Larson's comments are, to me, so silly, because what does any of that have to do with the movie we actually got? And, there's a lot of people that were sharpening their sticks for this movie and have been highly critical in the online pundit space, but I really liked it. And I thought, like you, there's a lot of great attention to detail, and I think it does fit in with the rest of the canon. I really did like it. And look, I liked seeing the Kree homeworld, the Supreme Intelligence. I liked all of that, and I liked the Skrulls, and I liked Brie Larson and Monica Rambeau, who famously was Captain Marvel in the comics, in the classic. I would love to see Monica Rambeau don the classic black and white Captain Marvel costume. I'd like to see her grow her fro out so she looks like that. I loved her in the Avengers, in early 80s Avengers. I mean, she was awesome. And I love that I have an action figure of her somewhere, actually. So I would love to see that character the classic. I mean, now she's got dreadlocks and they've made her more up to date. But I like that classic. I like the silhouette she creates. So it was great to see her in the movie too. And of course Goose. Who doesn't like Goose? And to see Coulson, I would like to have seen more of Coulson. I really like seeing the accusers and seeing how Ronan was used in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, basically bombing the Skrull population from existence. I mean, the Kree were not nice people. They basically were the jackbooted Nazis, and the Skrulls became the Jews in a way. That's kind of how I was reading it. They were bent on a campaign of extermination, and basically. Well, I don't want to ruin the movie for you, but there were even echoes of Schindler's List in my mind, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, that was something that I was surprised by. Alexander Wilson says, with Disney and AT&T Warner Media taking Netflix head on, how do you think Netflix will counterattack them because they knew this was coming? Well, I think Netflix is already counterattacking anything that Fox and the Fox Disney merger and Time Warner AT&T Warner Media, AT&T and Warner Media will do. I mean, what you're seeing is clearly Disney is going to have a very formidable streaming service, but that's why Netflix has stepped up. That's why they're spending billions of dollars on original programming. I mean, Netflix has done just things that I've watched on Netflix just in the last couple of months. Sex Education, I thought was wonderful. Russian Doll, I thought was amazing. These are all original Netflix shows. The stuff they're making deals with the BBC, like Bodyguard. Netflix is going to be a place you're only going to be able to get all of that programming from Netflix, and that's the key to winning the streaming wars. I think CBS All Access, which is relying upon football and Star Trek to stay alive, ultimately will not, because they're just not going to be able to produce. They don't have the kind of pockets that Netflix does with their subscription base. I mean, with over 120 million people subscribed to Netflix every month, they're bringing in over $1 billion. That's pretty good cash flow, even though they're borrowing money to make programming. So, and I think what Warner Brothers has and what Disney and Fox now have is their libraries. That's why Disney bought Fox, because they then get to diversify their portfolio of IP that they own, and they can put that much more. The depth of what they're offering on their streaming platform is as big as it is. So I think that's what they're doing. But I think Netflix is going to be fine, because they are, not only is Netflix creating their own programming, but they're also acquiring Latin programming. They're acquiring Hindi programming, and they're acquiring lots of Asian programming as well on the platform. They truly have gone global in terms of what they're offering. And I think that's a big strength that they have. So I think AT&T Warner Media and Disney Fox they of course have their library, which is enormous. But I don't think that Netflix really has anything to worry about. They're going to continue to do what they're going to do. I think if anything, they have to be careful, or more careful, about how much money they're spending. Alexander Wilson says, will Apple buy Sony for their streaming service? That's a really good question. Again, the Columbia library is deep. There's a lot of good. I mean, I would expect you're going to see more of this. I mean, Apple's going to start making their own programming. They're diving in head first, and they're announcing more shows. They're putting out. Look at Taika Waititi is doing Time Bandits. You know, and he's going to be directing and writing. That's exciting, and we're going to get more of that great genre programming. I also, another Netflix show I liked was The Umbrella Academy. If you haven't seen that, I thought it was absolutely terrific. But hopefully it just means that we as viewers will win. That we will come out ahead. The viewers. It's like I've said this before, but when they teamed up the Alien and the Predator, whoever wins, we lose. Well, in the case, it's reversed. Whoever wins, we win, because we're just going to get more great original programming, and I think it's terrific. And in the long run, a lot of those people that were out of work are going to find new jobs as Apple ramps up and as these other streaming services ramp up, I'm hoping that it's just going to mean more programming. But eventually it's going to top out, and we're only going to have the big four or the big five, whoever it's going to be. There's not going to be a million little streaming services. There's going to be only less than probably 10. I would imagine. Brian Cruz says all that's left is for Disney to buy Warner Brothers so we can get a Batman versus Predator movie. I actually like that comic. I did too. I have that comic, the Batman versus Predator comic. Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of really interesting stuff happen. I mean, the idea of these kinds of crossovers. Can you imagine? I mean, aliens in the MCU. You know, I think that would be. I don't know if that would be a good thing, but it might be cool. I mean, I think that we could finally get another Aliens versus Predator movie, but base it on that first Dark Horse comic series. I mean, I see that if they're going to make R-rated fare out of those films and continue the Alien franchise and the Predator franchise, I can see them doing that. I would like to go to like Xenomorph Land at Disneyland. I hope they do that. I mean, they could do extraterrestrial land, you know, and have maybe the aliens can meet the Skrulls, you know, or the MCU we can have a cosmic end of things. There could be Cosmic Land at Disneyland and Disney World or something. I think that could be really, really interesting. Maybe. But yeah, you never know. Let's see what you guys have to say here. Bunyan Snipe says Michael Shannon as Galactus. That's actually really good. His face, you could actually motion capture and use Michael Shannon's face. He's got a Kirby-esque face. That's a great idea. I love this idea. I love it when you guys spit out these ideas and I'm just like, oh no, it's got to be that. Well, thank you for that, sir. That's a great thing. Bill Barkley says, Robert, have you seen the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon movie trailer? I have. Bonkers. But again, how fun does that look? Yeah, I bring it on. I mean, I'll watch that. It's funny to me because when I read the first, those first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics, and they were a lot more adult, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have become kind of this thing for kids now. It's funny because if you go back and you read those first comics, they were not quite that way. Olenti says, I really enjoyed Captain Marvel. I can't wait to see it again with my Marvel crew that typically sees it. I think so. I mean, that's the fun thing. The fun thing is to go see those movies, like you said, with your Marvel crew. You put the band back together every time. And how cool is it that, you get your crew back together to go see a Marvel movie, and less than 2 months later, there's another Marvel movie, and it's Marvel's Endgame. Avengers Endgame, man, I cannot wait. I love that we know so little about it. Although I did say I do think Kang the Conqueror is going to be in the movie. I have no evidence to back this up, but I said it on the John Campea show, and I hope so. So, Olenti, say hello to your crew for me. And do you guys dress up? Like there's one of the things that Vesna's here from Bosnia. She says, Robert, I hope you'd rub the box office result in John's face. Here's the thing. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to rub it in John's face because I don't like to gloat much. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I said was very evident to me. I think that this Captain Marvel movie had the female audience that had remained untapped. Not when I say untapped, they weren't counting on it as much as I think they probably should have. Because when I went Friday night at the Cinerama Dome, there was a huge female contingent. They were all dressed up in Captain Marvel hoodies, and moms were there with their daughters. Gaggles of girls, groups of girls, all clearly friends, had turned out for this movie, and I think they're still turning out for this movie. And the audience really loved it. It got a rousing round of applause, and I think that that's fantastic. And once again, the female audience has been underserved by the superhero films, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, basically we have Black Widow and that's it, and she's never headlined a film. So I think this Captain Marvel film meant a lot to a lot of people. I think for the most part it has an A cinema score grade, and people are really liking it. And yet I understand the fanboy bitching. I understand. I really do. Joseph asks, do you think we'll get Brent Spiner to guest star as Data? Before in the Picard show? I mean, Jonathan Frakes guest star is a given, right? I don't know. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what they do with the Picard show. I mean, I don't think they're going to come out of the gate and turn it into a Next Generation reunion. I don't think so. But I'd love to see Worf. I mean, I don't know how they would do Data. But in my mind, maybe Data just decided he would make himself look his age who says Data has to stay looking the way he looks? Why can't he age like Brent Spiner? I mean, we saw in All Good Things, he put a streak of gray in his hair. What if he just redesigned his exterior to make himself look older? So people related to him as he was older. I mean, he wanted to recreate the human experience. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think it'd actually be kind of interesting. But I expect you can't make a Picard show and not have any of the Next Generation crew. Can you? I don't know, man. That would be kind of weird. I think that we have to see that crew. Don't you? I mean, it would be kind of weird if we didn't. I would think, but then again, I could be wrong. Mark C says there are 3 miniseries of Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Screw waiting to watch it. Read it. They were fun. Yeah, absolutely. And Batman. My favorite Batman team up with somebody outside of the DC universe was Batman Grendel. I am still a huge Matt Wagner's Grendel. I love Grendel, and Batman had 2 Grendel team ups. I think. I mean, I have 2. There was the Hunter Rose incarnation of Grendel, and then there was what is he? Grendel Prime, the robot Grendel. I love that, and it's Batman has teamed up outside of the DC universe with other characters, and it's usually a lot of fun. I have not read the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics, but I would love to. If you like them. Mark C seems to be, with his many appearances here on this chat stream, that he knows his stuff. So if you recommend them, Mark, I will go read them. Willow Yang says, would you be able to tell us more about Space Rob? Do we get to control your character in the game? Well, let me tell you about Space Rob. Space Rob is very interesting. Last summer, a guy I did not know who was a fan of mine and a fan of John Schnepp's, who watches on Heroes, the creator, Neil, and he called me out of the blue, and I'd never met him, and he asked me if he could make a game based around me. I'm like, okay, like who's going to say no to that? And so it started out as like this small game where it was more like an asteroids game with Space Rob. He flies around and he basically shot asteroids. And then it sort of morphed from there. And I started riffing, and Neil created the character of Space Rob, and I sort of had some input, but I loved it. And the character as he's been developed is, for those of you who don't know, you can see the video on the Burnettwork, the announced video of Space Rob. And I said, when I got Gilbert, I started calling Gilbert, because I always give nicknames to everything. And I started calling Gilbert the Gilberian from the planet Gilbar, which is stupid and nonsensical. But then I had to come up with these things like, what is a Gilberian? What's his power? Where's the planet Gilbar? And so I started saying these things to Neil, and Neil would come up with ideas that, Rob has a spaceship. And I said, okay, well, let's call the spaceship the Kubrick. And then I said, because I love Japanese sci-fi and mecha and all that, I'm like, what if the spaceship could transform, into a robot, kind of like a Veritech fighter in Robotech? You can go from Valkyrie mode to Jurwalk mode to Batroid mode. What if you could do that? And so Neil's like, okay. And then I said, well, what if we added, or he might have asked me about a trivia component, because I did the movie Trivia Schmodown. So I'm like, okay. So I wrote a bunch of trivia questions and gave them to him. And then he was going to deliver the game to me back, and he showed me some gameplay. He sent me at him. He's doing all the animation, and he showed me a bit of animation of Space Rob running through this, and I was like, it was charming. I mean, it's much better graphics than 8-bit graphics, but it still had this old retro feel that I really liked. And apparently there's a whole contingent of people like him that are designing these games. And then after I'm riffing with him, he made the game much bigger. And as I wrongly said on the announcement video, I said Space Rob, the mobile game, it's actually now an adventure game that's mostly for PCs, and we're going to release a mobile version of it later. but it's going to be a developing game. But yes, you play Space Rob, to answer your question, Willow. You play Space Rob, and Gilbert is his trusty sidekick, as you can see, and his spaceship is the Kubrick, and it is transformable. And Neil has sent me things like he sent me the animation of the Kubrick transforming, and I'm like, that is so cool. And what I want to do is, obviously the design of the characters lend themselves to like pop figures. I want to do some like rotocast figures of all this and turn Space Rob into a franchise. It'll be my own IP. And I'll tell you something else. Here's something interesting from a business perspective. Neil, when he first came to me with this, and I've learned that what do I tell you, kids? You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. It's not show friends, it's show business. So I said to Neil that we needed to have some kind of an agreement between us, because if he was going to use my likeness and have me promote it, I mean, we'd have to come up with some deal. And he graciously said, well, you can have everything. I'm like, that's not fair. You can't do that. And I said, what if we did this? What if we just split it 50-50? That's what we do. If the game becomes a hit and Space Rob becomes some kind of viable IP, that yes, indeed, we'll just split it 50-50. And while we haven't gotten into this part of the deal, I believe that there's a certain dollar value that's associated with the work that he put in. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that work is $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. He should make that money before we start splitting the costs. Because here's another lesson that I've learned working in Hollywood. It's very important that people feel valued. And so often in the independent film world, like myself, I feel undervalued all the time, because I'll work 24/7 for you, but I seldom get paid what I think I'm worth. But if up front you make sure that somebody feels they're being treated fairly, it's not like what happened on Bespin. I don't want someone like Darth Vader. I don't want to be Darth Vader looking at Lando Calrissian saying, "You feel you're being treated unfairly." I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. That's not good business. So you want to keep a creator happy, and I wanted Neil, because he's been doing such great work, to feel valued. So that's sort of the story of Space Rob, and I look forward to sharing it with you. I'm supposed to be getting a playable demo in the next couple weeks, and Neil was going to get me a poster yesterday, but it takes him a little while longer to get things done, but it's always for the best. And it's been a really fun experience watching this Space Rob game develop. And he sent me a lot of dialogue, which I'm now going to record my own voice, and I will be the voice of Space Rob. And it's funny, because when he came to me with the design of this character, he made my hair gray and gave me big green eyes. And it's funny that I'm like, wow, because I don't notice this about myself. I don't pay much attention, but I'm like, my girlfriend Elizabeth's always like, yeah, your hair's gray. I'm like, no, it's blonde. She's like, no, it's gray. And so when you see, it's funny when people do fan art first they did it for Collider Heroes, or they did it for the John Campea show, or the Weekly Hero, everybody draws me with gray hair. And I think it's so funny, because it's the realization that sometimes I don't have the realization of my own that my hair has gone gray, and that it's just funny to see other people. But I was like, I love that about the Space Rob character design. So sorry, I've gone off about Space Rob. My favorite Chinese Deadpool, I call him Chinese Deadpool. I gotta remember your name one day. Asks, have you seen Kevin Smith's reaction on that cameo? Yes. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Smith has a very interesting cameo in Captain Marvel. And if I was Kevin Smith and I got the cameo moment that he gets in Captain Marvel, and it made perfect sense, because you'll see. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I saw what he said on Twitter about it. And if you should go look up what Kevin Smith, I don't want to ruin that for you either, but Kevin Smith's reaction to his cameo in Captain Marvel couldn't have been better. And what a great cameo it is. I mean, when I was watching the movie as an independent filmmaker myself, I'm not comparing myself to Kevin Smith. I haven't had nearly his success or made his many movies. It was, what a joy. I can't imagine, especially if you didn't know it was coming. And it seemed to me that he didn't know it was coming. And what a great thing. And I was really happy for him, and I loved his reaction. Shogawar asks, has Rob seen Alita Battle Angel yet? Yes, I have indeed seen Alita Battle Angel, and I saw it on Sunday, and I have to say I loved it. I went on Sunday. I went to a double bill. I saw Captain Marvel again, and I saw Alita Battle Angel. Had some time to kill. I loved Alita Battle Angel. I thought, look, was some of the dialogue clunky? Yes, and you know. Was there a lot of originality in Alita Battle Angel? Well, no, not really, because if you've been reading manga and you've been reading science fiction and Alita Battle Angel, you've kind of seen all of the various elements before. But that didn't bother me. I just thought it was a fun, beautifully realized science fiction movie, and I think it's probably Robert Rodriguez's best film since El Mariachi and Desperado, really, since his independent movies. I thought he did a great job directing. He's very hit and miss for me, and I really liked the character of Alita. I like Christoph Waltz in it. I liked all the robot characters. You know, I was her boyfriend's relationship with her a little, cheesy, certainly, but I enjoyed it. I mean, as a piece of pop sci-fi action, it had heart, and I got exactly out of it what I thought I was going to get out of it. So yes, I did see Alita Battle Angel, and I did like it. So that's something. Koba's here. I believe Koba says he may have stopped Disney releasing the original versions. That's meaning George Lucas. But since Fox technically still owned the physical rights to distribute the first and second trilogies, nothing had stopped them from doing it. Yeah, John and I talked about that. What he's referring to, what Koba's referring to, is whether or not Disney now owning the rights to the original Star Wars entirely, will we see the original trilogy as made originally from 77 to 83? Will we see them on home video, or are we stuck with the original versions? Look, I don't know if George Lucas said they're like John Campea is convinced that they're never going to put them out. I don't think that's true. If only for the reason that, like, I have 3 different versions of the original trilogy still in my collection, and 2 of them are. One of them is a 4K file, and they're fan made, and then I've got the original versions on Laserdisc. But and DVD, as a matter of fact. But I think there's money to be made. If there's money to be made, Disney will figure out how to make that, and they probably will get around to releasing them at some point. If it's truly George made the special edition so he didn't have to keep paying his wife fat royalty checks, his ex-wife Marcia, then Disney isn't going to care if there's money to be made. I don't think. Mark C says, sent you a tweet concerning a piece of art previously discussed. Please review and tweet me back. Yes, sir. Mark, I will do that. I can't do that right now because I guess I could. Let's see. If Twitter's open, I'll do it right now on my computer. Let's see. Oh, it isn't. I have to send my phone a code. My phone is in the other room, so I can't. But I will get back to you after this chat. Let's see. Ed 5000 says Kevin Feige personally called Kevin Smith ahead of time to let him know Stan Lee shot. Oh, shit. Okay, you already said it. I'm not gonna. I did not know that. So Kevin Smith knew it was coming. I did not know that. By the way, don't disregard what you just heard me say. If you haven't seen Captain Marvel, I'm sorry. I did not. Koba says that Bond is now owned by the WB. I think. Well, Bond is now. No, Bond is coming out. A24 or no, Annapurna and MGM are now the co-owners of Bond, and they are releasing the new Bond film, which is really cool, under the newly revived United Artists label. United Artists was famously started back in even the late 20s by people like Mary Pickford and I think Douglas Fairbanks Sr. I'm not sure exactly. It was like 5 big stars started it. And if you were a child of the 80s, of home video in the 80s, all the Bond movies were out on MGM, but they were United Artists films, and you got that cool MGM and United Artists logo at the front of the Bond movie. So I'm happy to see. I hope when they revive United Artists, they They either do well, it's not the Transamerica company, the old 70s version of the United Artists logo, but I hope they bring back, that was in the front of the Bond movies and the Rocky films, like the silver chrome UA logo and that music. It'd be cool if they did some derivation of that. We saw that logo again. The Doctor 1701A says, just watching The Spy Who Loved Me on Blu-ray, noticing that the discs are distributed by Fox. Does the Fox-Disney merger affect Bond? Good question. I mean, I don't think so. Fox was releasing the Bond movies on disc, on DVD, and on Blu-ray, but there was still MGM, because Fox was releasing the MGM library. I don't know how that's going to work. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm curious to know. That is a good question. But that's one of the many questions I think that have arisen over this merger. Yellow Flash says, couldn't thoroughly enjoy Captain Marvel because some weird lady sitting next to me making orgasm sounds and turning her face to stare at me the entire film. Well, that could go one of two ways. That could have been a good thing or a bad thing. I assume she was just having excitement because of Captain Marvel, and she was what we like to do in these circles. The Post-Singularity knows what the word squee means. She was just squeeing, I'm sure, over her love of Captain Marvel. Natus Moon says, what do you think of the Marvel What If anthology animated series announced on the Disney streaming service? Well, the first time I heard about it was from John Campea this morning. They have announced a What If show for Disney streaming, and I mistakenly thought it was going to be live action. For those who don't know, Marvel Comics has periodically published, they did when I was younger, and then they did later, more recently, a series called What If. And my favorite classic What If was what if Conan the Barbarian was in the 20th century. And there's a great Bill Sienkiewicz cover of Conan with a gun. And What If was basically stories that would never happen in the Marvel universe, but within the confines of what if they did happen. And I thought that's great. And they announced an animated series. I think it's going to be very, very cool. I don't know if they can do the actual Conan story, but like what if so-and-so teams up with so-and-so? And I think because it's animated, all bets are off. I'd love to see Moon Knight team up with the Avengers or the West Coast Avengers, like in the comic book or something like that. I think it's really cool that it's happening. And I'm excited. I mean, a what if show, count me in. Magic K says, did you watch last week's Doom Patrol episode? I have not subscribed to DC Universe yet. And as a Titans fan, I know it's horrible. It's horrible. I feel terrible. I have not done it, but I am going to when Swamp Thing drops so I can watch Titans all the way through and Doom Patrol all the way through, and Swamp Thing. Mark C says the tweet is under Stephen Chure and from several days ago. Oh, well, I will check that out and I will get back to you. Thanks for that. Somebody just said, I'm just looking at these questions and somebody mentioned the cat from outer space. I read some article online today about favorite cats in movies. And before I started reading it, I'm like, they better have the cat from outer space, another Disney movie that I liked when I was a kid. And sure enough, the cat from outer space was on that list. Not to leave you in any suspense, the number one badass cat in movies was Jones from the Alien franchise, from the first Alien, was the number one person on that list, which I thought was great. So that's great. Let's see. Joseph says, it's responding. Say when people respond to other things. Olenti says, do I think that we've seen the last of the Inhumans live action on screen for at least the foreseeable future? That's a really good question. I was shocked, frankly. I love the Inhumans, and I was shocked by how badly how badly Marvel botched the Inhumans on TV. The late great John Schnepp was particularly crushed by. I was baffled by it, and I'm sorry that they are not. And I think they continued to be mucked up with in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. And I think that they are ripe for a cinematic reinvention. So, I would hope. I love the Inhumans. And look, if they're making an Eternals series, maybe or an Eternals movie, maybe they can make a movie, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to see the Inhumans because I dearly love those characters. And I like the Inhumans in general. Like, who doesn't like the Inhumans? Let's see. Matthew. You're talking about Matthew Godet. I thought they made the Countdown comic canon, the one where Data was captain of the Enterprise E. That you guys have been talking about what he's referring to. Famously, there was a prequel comic that was conceived of by Robert Orci and by Alex Kurtzman that tied into Star Trek 09 that details the events beforehand, and what happened and what Picard was doing and how they were trying to stop this supernova from happening. And yeah, they said it was canonical. I don't know if it is. The Star Trek timeline baffles me. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's happening. Bunyan Snipe says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was originally a parody of Daredevil, and I think Ronin as well. Maybe Netflix thumbs its nose at Marvel by doing a more adult version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's always a possibility. You never know. I think what's interesting about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is nobody remembers where they came from or that they were a parody comic to begin with. And then there was a bunch of parodies of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I still have radioactive black belt hamsters. I've got a bunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, offshoots. And but they could. I would like to see a more adult version, but I think the parody would be lost on people because it's been so long. It's been 35 years or 35 years plus since the things that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were parodies of have been around. Robot Shlomo says, now the Disney Fox deal is final. How long before we see Spidey swing by the Baxter building or someone say there's a specialist, read something? Well, that's the big question, is it not? I mean, we all want to know what's going to happen with the Fantastic Four. Look, Marvel has not announced there's Skippy John Jones, the cat. Hello, Skippy John Jones. You can still see her tail. Look, there's Gilbert and Skippy. Look at that. Look at those two. How's it going, guys? What's up? You hanging out together? Skippy, you going to follow Gilbert? I don't know. But you can see Skippy's tail is healing. It's been slow to heal, but it's been healing. You can see where it was shaved there a little bit. But where was I? I think that we all want to know what's going to happen with the Fantastic Four and everyone else, especially the X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know what's going to happen. I still suspect, because they haven't announced any of Phase 4. There are no plans for Phase 4. They have said that Spider-Man Far From Home is where the Phase 4 universe begins, or maybe it's everything after Far From Home. I don't know yet. It's going to be interesting. I still maintain that maybe Spider-Man Far From Home took place before Avengers Endgame, but maybe not. Maybe it's the first post-Endgame movie, and it truly is in a reset, rebooted universe. I don't know. I have no confirmation of that. I love how Marvel is playing everything about Endgame and Phase 4 close to the vest, but they have announced release dates for a lot of these movies, and they haven't announced what these movies are. But you know what? They've been planning. These people, they know what they're doing. I think we're going to get really exciting announcements after Far From Home comes out, after we see what happens in Avengers Endgame. I still maintain, even though it's John Campea said it's never going to happen, he also said that Captain Marvel was never going to gross $1 billion, but with a potential $70 million second weekend, that's pretty amazing. I know it's more of a 50% drop, but it's still a pretty good hold, and it shows that Captain Marvel could definitely do in excess of $300 million domestic, especially with an $11 million Monday. Who knows what it's going to make today and the rest of the week? I mean, they could put another 50 million, 60 million up in the coffers before we even get to next Friday. So it's incredible. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be, I think one of the things that they're going to announce, I honestly believe within the first 2 years post-Disney merger, meaning 2 years starting this March, we're going to find out that we're going to be seeing a Fantastic Four or an X-Men movie. I can almost guarantee it. Because why not? Why wouldn't they do that? If Skippy jumps up on my desk, as she is wont to do when she wants me to feed her, she gets on my desk all the time. She steps on my keyboard, and if she jumps up, she could also pull my mic cord out. I apologize for her in advance. So I'm just saying that could happen, possibly. So Robot Shlomo, I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm very, very curious. I think we all are. But whatever's going to happen, I think it's going to be great. and it's going to be fun, and I'm looking very forward to it. So yeah. Dwayne Carter says, do you think a Flash movie would work better if Wally West was the Flash rather than Barry Allen and focused on the legacy aspect of his character? I think that's an interesting idea, but I don't know. I mean, I really liked the portrayal of Flash that we got in the Justice League movie. I'd love to see that Barry Allen. But once you have a legacy character, and we've gotten so much. We have so much Flash from the CW. Oops, Skippy is about to jump. I can tell. I'm blocking her though. She can't jump up over my arm. So yep, she's going to turn around and come up the other way. I'll never look at a cat the same way again, I'll tell you. But I don't know. I mean, I really like Barry Allen. Is kind of he's a big gun in the DC pantheon. So I think if they do make a Flash movie, they're probably going to do a Barry Allen movie. But after the CW's Flash, it's hard. And like I said this once before, how do you come up with a storyline for a Flash film? I mean, is he gonna take on some apocalyptic big bad? How do you do that? I think it's going to really depend on how Shazam does, because if Shazam is as good as we all think it is, or think it's going to be, what the early reactions were, then I think we're going to see a humorous, more of a Shazam-esque take on the character, which I think would be great. It doesn't have to be as dark and as serious. But everybody wants to see a great Flash movie. Everybody. There's not one person in the world that doesn't want to see a great Flash movie. I honestly believe that. And I want to see a great Flash movie. But doing Kid Flash, I mean, they could introduce Kid Flash. I love Wally West. I love when he becomes Flash in Titans. I mean, I love that. And I love the whole Flash legacy. It's one of the richest legacies in the DC universe. I mean, Flash's Rogues Gallery, and they've really done a good job delving into that on the CW show. But on the big screen, I would rather see Barry Allen first. But that, they might do a Kid Flash. They might do a younger version, because if Shazam worked, why not go back and maybe have Kid Flash, Wally West becomes Kid Flash when he's 13 or 14. I don't know, but it's a cool idea. But I think they're going to go with the original Flash. I think Barry Allen's going to be the man that we see on the big screen. Sanity's Radical says, Rob, if you love Game of Thrones, and I do, check out Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steve Erickson. Takes epic, gritty, high fantasy to a whole new level. Okay, that sounds good. Is it Steve Erickson? I wonder if it's Steve Erickson, the writer who used to write for the LA Weekly. That's Steve Erickson, who's a great author in his own right. I'd have to check that out. Thanos 43 Infinity says, Rob, regarding the Skrulls, Feige has alluded that there are other Skrulls out there in the cosmos, so secret invasion is coming. Yeah, I mean, that could be. I think, look, it was okay in the comic books, but it would bum me out if one of our great characters that we've been following for this long a period of time is a Skrull. And the way they've depicted, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of other Skrulls out there. They allude to that. But I kind of like the direction they went with the Skrulls. And, I'd like to see the Super Skrull on screen. But yeah, I don't know about Secret Invasion. I don't know if that's epic enough. I mean, after Infinity War and after Endgame, is it big enough? I don't know. I don't know. Bill Barkley says, Robert Meyer Burnett, do you think we'll get an Endgame trailer at the start of next month? Yeah, I think we haven't yet received what John and I are calling the Bang trailer, the Big Bang trailer that gives you the all of the antics that we're going to see. We haven't got that yet. So I don't know. I mean, I would really like to see that Bang trailer. I really would. I don't know. They don't have to. I mean, to me, it's like Captain Marvel was a great trailer for Avengers Endgame. I mean, they don't have to. I don't want to know anything about it. One of the great things about Infinity War was one of the most fun times I've had at the movies in years, because I knew so little about what was going to happen, and that was delightful. I loved it, and it was fantastic. So I prefer, because I can't help myself. Like you guys, can you help yourselves? I mean, if there's an Avengers Endgame trailer, who's going to watch it 100 times back to back? This guy right here. And I don't want that trailer. I don't want it to drop, man. I swear, I told John, I'm like, why do they don't need a trailer? But it's not the mom and dad at large need to be sucked in. But clearly, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is chugging right along, and I, for one, couldn't be more delighted. And it's great to see. I mean, we now have, judging by what I saw at the movie theater twice this weekend, we have a bunch of women that are underrepresented, that weren't necessarily the biggest comic book fans. There was a contingent of them that went to Captain Marvel and are now comic book fans. And like Black Panther, if you loved Black Panther in Civil War, it was just a mere, then you got your Black Panther movie. And after you saw Black Panther, the film, it was just a couple months and you got to see Black Panther again in Infinity War. In fact, the final battle takes place in Wakanda. So I'm not saying that the final battle has anything to do with the Kree homeworld or anything like that, because I have no clue what happens in Avengers Endgame. But there's a whole bunch of new fans, I think, out there for the MCU because you've got the underrepresented, the girls, man. The girls went, and that's fantastic. And I'll tell you something. There's nothing better than walking out of a movie, and I did this twice, where I saw girls in their Captain Marvel hoodies, or I saw some girl had a really cool embroidered Avengers jacket. I'm like, I want that. It was really cool. It was the Avengers logo, and it was like it wasn't a windbreaker. It was like almost like one of those puffy, I don't know what they're called, puffy jackets you wear in the winter, but it was embroidered with the Avengers logo. I mean, and these girls they loved it. I did hear grousing from dudes. It sucked. I did. I heard a lot of grousing in the theater from guys. I didn't hear grousing from one female member of the audience. I just saw big smiles and everybody was excited, and that's why you go to the movies, and it was cool. So that's good. But yeah, if that makes any sense. Bunyan Snipe says, imagine if the production designers from Ragnarok had worked on the Inhumans. Man, I know, dude. Wouldn't that have been great? I would love to have seen. I mean, the great thing about Thor Ragnarok is it's so Kirby-esque in its design. It was great. I mean, I loved all that stuff, and I wanted more from but they're making it for TV. Part of the reason the Inhumans, I think, failed was it looked like it cost 4 cents. It was a bummer. Matthew Gadet says, I hope DC does not screw up the New Gods. It could be their Star Wars. I agree. I know that Anna DuVernay was announced as the director of the New Gods. I don't know if that's the case after A Wrinkle in Time still, but I'm a big fan of hers. If you haven't seen her documentary, it's either called 13 or the 13th. It's all about the 13th Amendment and the prison system. It's a terrific, terrific documentary. I highly recommend it. You got to check it out. So, yeah, that's a good thing. I just saw a troll in here who asked me a question that, you know what, I'm going to answer this question. The answer to your question, Mr. Troll, is yes, I do. I have since I was very young. You got to keep things. You just never know. You got to be like the Boy Scouts, always be prepared. You never know when you're going to have to rock and roll. So yes, I do. Dale M says, oh, please don't be an idiot in here. Come on, man, grow up. Yeah, XY Racks. I don't know what. I mean, it's funny. I don't mind trolls if they're smart and intelligent and they want to come in and make fun of me and ask me stupid infantile questions. But I don't understand. Why would you come in to do that? Like, what are you sitting in your mom's basement laughing about it? Is it funny? I mean, if you're going to troll me in an interesting, compelling, unique way that only you know how to do. I mean, if you're going to come troll me, do it and make it great. It's like I always tell kids today when I lecture to them or when I lecture at schools, high schools, and talk about film, I'm always saying that if you're going to get in trouble, if you're going to do something that it's bad, make it creatively interesting. So as a parent, you can then go, wow, you were a real asshole, a real idiot for doing that, but I at least respect what it was you tried to pull off. I've always been of the opinion, and I've seen this, as a matter of fact, when I learned this when I was in high school, if you threw a rager, a massive kegger, what you do is the next day, you always go to whoever's party it was, and you help that person clean up. I actually saw this in high school. People would throw these parties, and then other friends the next day would show up and clean up because you want to be able to throw ragers again. If you leave a huge mess and your parents figure it out, that's no fun because you always want to be able to do that again. So always be respectful. And if you're going to be a troll, be a good troll. Be a clever troll that we can all admire. I love that. I love clever trolling is always a good thing. So yeah, but don't just come in and be a douche. MW77 says, I'm a huge fan of the Riddick movies. I want a fourth. Man, me too. I love the Riddick films. I mean, the third Riddick was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. And man, I love the Chronicles of Riddick. Necromongers. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love? I don't understand why people didn't love that movie. I love that movie. I love the long version of that film. I love Pitch Black. I'm a huge fan of Riddick. And yes, bring on another movie. It's Vin Diesel's signature role, and I would love to see a new Riddick movie. And I mean, Chronicles of Riddick, man, I love the design. I love the feel of it. I loved everything about it. Bring it on. And Dale M, I did block XYZ Rax. I didn't see what he was saying. And you're out. You're out. You're out of the family, Tom. Mills asks, do you think the Orville will be renewed as it got tax credits for season 3? Do you think Fox will be used by Disney for more MCU shows? I think so. I mean, both of those. I think the Orville is going to get a renewal. I really do. I mean, Seth MacFarlane has made a lot of money for Fox. And the Orville has been, to me, very hit and miss this year, but there's been some really good episodes, and it's really starting to come into its own. And I like the Orville. And I like the characters, and I like Seth MacFarlane. I was actually able to meet him and interact with him a bit when we were doing the Next Generation documentaries, and I more power to him. I'd love to see more Orville, and I do think that Fox will be used by Disney. I don't know if necessarily more MCU shows, but we're going to see a lot of Fox properties probably wind up on the streaming service. I mean, they've talked about an Alien series, so we'll see. That'll be really, really interesting if that in fact happens. Let's see it. Let's hope it does. Mark C says, logic says if you're an interstellar empire, you can travel faster than light. Why do you need a light speed engine? That's a very good question. But maybe that light speed engine was for traversing galaxies. I don't know. I mean, they didn't really get into that. But we'll see. But that did kind of bother me. I mean, that was one of the things that did bother me about. I thought that was a little bit sloppy. And why is she building a light speed engine on Earth? Wouldn't you go somewhere else that already had, like, you could go anywhere in the technologically advanced universe, but you're on Earth building a light speed engine? I mean, were you doing that obviously to stay secret or stay hidden? Like, I just, everybody in the MCU has faster than light travel. They zip around the galaxy like there's no problem. So yeah, that was interesting. I don't know about that. It was weird. I agree. That was one of those things I didn't necessarily like. Pre-Life Teaser asks, when will the New Mutants movie be released? That's a good question, if at all. I don't know. That movie was already supposed to be out. They scheduled reshoots. They've never made these reshoots, and they still don't have them scheduled. I don't know. That might be a complete casualty of this merger. We might never see the New Mutants, or it might show up. It might be their first streaming service debut film. I could see that happening too. But you never know. I mean, the New Mutants, maybe that's why. Maybe they're holding off. I just think it's weird that it's bizarre to me that they shot this movie. And I don't know. Stubble McShave says, you think we'll see Lar Gand or Mon-El in live action? Now, didn't we see, wasn't Mon-El in, oh no, I'm thinking Legion of Superheroes. Well, no, but yeah, I mean, wasn't Mon-El in Supergirl? I don't know. I forget. But I think so, probably, with all the shows that are happening. I mean, I think they got to make a Legion of Superheroes show. I mean, they really do. We need a live action Legion of Superheroes, epic, cosmic, in your face. I love the Legion of Superheroes. I'd love to see that happen. Make it happen. Somebody make it happen. I want it to happen. Can it happen? Please. Matthew Godet says, unlike Luke Skywalker, whose entire journey off screen was never explored in the sequels, Indiana Jones got married and there is no story. Yeah, I'd love to see another Indiana Jones movie. I mean, I hated Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as much as anybody, but I love that character. I would love to see him come back. Radio Broog says, I think combining Star Wars with another IP would be blasphemy. I also think they would wait a couple of generations and the older fans like me would be gone, so the more rabid protests will be gone. Well, again, it depends, man. If a movie's good, they have a good idea. And it, like, did you read, I love the Star Wars horror novel it's not great, but I loved it. Death Troopers, which was zombies in the Star Wars universe. I liked it. I mean, I would like to see. It's weird, but look, I like the IDW Star Trek Planet of the Apes, Star Trek Legion of Superheroes, Star Trek Green Lantern Corps, whatever. I mean, I like those things. They're fun. It'd be kind of fun to see a big franchise spanning movie. It might, I agree with you. The Star Wars universe can be kept pure, but maybe if they do a what if movie, the Star Wars movie that combined the franchises of some kind. I mean, it would be interesting. It depends, how it's done. I don't know. What do you think? Robert Meyer Burnett can't be a cave and buy that Hot Toys Thanos. I don't know, man. I think he should. I know. I want that Thanos so bad. I haven't been buying toys lately. I've used points and stuff like that. I just haven't been on the Hot Toys tip because I haven't had money. But man, they do have payment plans over at Sideshow Toys for Hot Toys, and that Thanos figure. I mean, you gotta have that Thanos figure. You just gotta have him. I want to put Thanos. I want to do when I move this around. I'm gonna my new background is gonna be my glass case. Actually, 3 glass cases behind me, and I already have the Avengers spanning these shelves. But I want to do a villain shelf and have Thanos and Ultron and maybe Loki and the Chitauri Warrior and the Chitauri Captain figures. I don't know. You can't not have Thanos. You just can't. You gotta have Thanos. He's got to be part of your collection. It's just a pricey figure, man. It's a pricey figure. Hell, I want to get that 1-to-1 scale Infinity Gauntlet. That Hot Toys makes a 1-to-1 scale Infinity Gauntlet. It's like $1,500 or something. Maybe it's not that much, but it's a lot of money. I want that thing right here on my desk, sitting right next to Pearl here. I want my live action Infinity Gauntlet. I think that would be great. Willow, let's see. Willow says to Joseph, I haven't watched the show, but I enjoy listening to Campia ranting about how they keep on jobbing Superman on the show. What Willow is talking about, I didn't watch a lot of wrestling growing up, so I didn't know what the term jobber meant. Like a jobber is somebody who's there to make the hero look good, like in wrestling. And Campia, he always rants about how they've made Superman a jobber on the CW Supergirl show. And I'd never heard that term before. And I think I love the term. Are you a jobber? Are they a jobber? Is that character a jobber? And he's not wrong. Watching Supergirl, Superman is always like second fiddle. And it's Supergirl. It's not Superman. I get it. I understand. But he really is a jobber. And I love when Campia talks about it. When John goes off on rants, when I'm either sitting next to him, like I miss being in the studio because when we go off on rants, I was sitting right next to him, and it was fun to just look at him through my peripheral vision because you could feel the energy coming off the guy, and it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Campy. I love Campy's rants. Let's see. Matthew Gadet says, I think Finn should have gotten a more interesting arc, a stormtrooper who went rogue, like the Hand of Judgment in the extended universe. Look, man, I agree with you. I actually like all of the characters that they introduced, but I think they've done a terrible job developing these characters over the course of this new trilogy. I mean, honestly, the only person that I care about is all the original. I want to see if Mark Hamill comes back. He's going to come back. He's going to be back in episode 9. That's all I care about. I don't care about anybody else. Kylo Ren's a punk. I'd rather see Hux come into his own. I mean, I don't like Kylo Ren. He's kind of a lame. To me, he's like, somebody put it best when they said Kylo Ren is the front man of a Darth Vader cover band. And I believe that. I mean, he's just a punk. I don't care. Ever since he threw a tantrum and smashed, used his lightsaber on the halls of a Star Destroyer, I'm like, what a douche. Why give this guy any credibility at all simply because he wields the Force? But whatever. And Rey is fine, but I just don't care about her either. What does she want? By the end of Last Jedi, I'm like, okay, that story's over. I just don't care. Start over. Give me another Star Wars. But you never know. Vesna says, Robert, I think Marvel did it on Earth the same reason that Wakanda was hidden for so long, because nobody would expect it to be on Earth. Remember that the Kree thought Earth was a dump. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, but that's very sound logic. However, the question remains, why in the Marvel Cinematic Universe did anybody need a light speed engine? I mean, she was on Earth, so presumably she used a light speed engine to get from the Kree homeworld to Earth, which means she could already travel at light speed. Everybody in the universe is already flying at faster than light speeds in the MCU. So that was a little sketchy to me. I didn't understand that. I don't know. But they have jump point. Oh, maybe, they have the jump points too. But again, why a light speed engine if you have jump points? Because you can traverse much larger distances. I don't know. And we haven't seen like jump points. We know that everyone zips around in Infinity War. They get it from here to there pretty quickly. Does everybody use jump points? And if there are these jump points, I mean, they're clearly mechanical jump points. Does somebody build those things, or are the jump points generated by ships? Or does every planet get a jump point? I don't know. Or is it just created when you go into a jump point? It's just where you hit light speed. I don't know. Bunyan Snipe says maybe we'll get an Ant-Man, Wasp, Goliath movie set in the 80s with them having to deal with the Kree and the Skrulls fighting in the Arctic. That would be cool. I'd go see that. I love that idea. Why not? Why not do that? That would be pretty damn cool. Listen, I do have to do work today, so I'm going to jump off this chat. It was good to be back. I'll be back tomorrow to chat some more. I'll be on the John Campea show at 9 a.m. And then I'm going to take John Campea is going to send me some questions that he got sent in that he didn't answer, and I'm going to do that. I don't know exactly when, but I'm doing that soon. So I'll be doing that, and then I'll be back with Robservations as well. And the upgrades are coming, man. The upgrades to this chat are coming. Thanks for being here, and I want to thank all of you, the members of the Post-Geek Singularity community, all of you for adding your voices, and thank you for supporting this channel and supporting me and what I'm doing. And I can't wait to bring you all Space Rob. If you haven't seen the Space Rob announcement video, it's short. It's less than a minute long. And I think it's funny. And hopefully you'll see the Space Rob poster, the promo poster soon. And I'm really excited about Space Rob. I mean, I never thought I'd have a video game about a character that's based on me. And Space Rob and his trusty sidekick, Gilbert the Gilberian from the planet Gilbar. And it's very exciting that this is happening. I have no idea how much this game is going to cost. I would imagine it'll be downloadable anywhere, and I'm sure we'll be expanding it a lot. So for those of you interested, I can't wait to bring it out for you to see. Of course, I'm excited to get it from Neil. But anyway, I'm going to end this chat, and as I always end these chats, I want to say every person that you meet has a story to tell that you have not heard yet. All you have to do is listen. And with that, Post-Geek Singularity community, I bid you farewell until the next time. And as always, have a better day.